Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to start up our Tormach 770s and also load a part to be able to run. So to be able to turn on our mill, we come onto the side and we turn on the power switch right there. It's going to take a little while for the computer to be able to boot up, but what we also need to do is we want to oil our machine while it's booting up. And where we find our manual oiler is down here. All that we're going to do is we're going to pull this out and let it go in. If there is no oil left in the container down there, make sure you notify your instructor. We also want to check our coolant level down there and make sure that we are right around our 8 gallons, which is necessary to be able to mill. What that oil does is it makes sure that we have constant oil on all of our bedways and everything like that, so that everything just moves appropriately on our machine. And while we are booting up, or after we're done booting up, what we need to do is we need to put this in reset. So what we'll do on the screen is we turn our e-stop to the left to pull it out of e-stop. We're going to press that reset button right there. We're going to press our flashing reset button right there, and now we see that our status light is no longer flashing blue. Then what we also want to do is we want to reference our x-axis, our y-axis, and our z-axis. And what this will do for us is it will put our bed and our spindle up against the proc switches to be able to find the absolute zero for that. The next thing that we want to do is we are going to put in our parallels and our part in here. We'll clamp this down, and what I also need to do is I need to put in our Hamir, which is tool 99. And to be able to do that, there's a button on the left hand side here that when we press that, it allows us to be able to put in our BT30. When I release that, it'll pull the tool up. Can't do that one-handed, so we'll be back in a little bit. All right, now that we have our Hamir in our spindle, what we want to do is we want to change it to tool 99 so that we have the proper tool offset for that. And all that we do for that is you press that button right there, and on our keyboard you type in 99, and that'll work just fine for us. The next thing that we want to do is we want to load up our part, and for this one I'm going to be loading up our fidget spinner blank, but whatever part you may be loading up, you may be doing pretty much the same thing. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have our 1 3/8 parallels if you're doing your fresh piece, and you can find on there, they're all printed. It says 1/8 by 1 3/8 by 5 inches long. So I'm going to put that in, and I need to bring that down a little bit. Make sure that that's nice and flat, and we want to have our part in the center of our vise. If we have it over on the side, what can happen a little bit is that this side will stay put, but our vise will start turning that, or the jaws in our vise will start turning that way a little bit. We don't want that to happen, so what we'll do is we'll make sure that it's right in the center of the vise and that it is held down nice and tight on top of those parallels. And what we'll do is we will use our vise handle to be able to tighten that down. When we put our vise handle on there, what we want to do is we want to turn that to the right, and we want to make sure that it's nice and snug there. When we're done with that, what we want to do is we want to come back to our controls over here, and here we have our jogging knob. So if I turn this to the left or the right, we can see that my x-axis is moving to the left or the right. On the left hand side here we have our x, y, and z axes. That a-axis is for our 4th axis, and then here we have our different steps. That's going to be our tenths, that's going to be our 100,000ths. That is going to be, if I turn that, we can see that that is turning in the thousandths, and then that is our 10,000ths right there. So what I want to do is get close in our 100 thou position. So I'm going to turn that to the left to bring my Z down, but we don't want to be doing that anywhere close to our part, because what could very easily happen is we can snap off the end of our hammer. And I'll show you that in a little bit. So now that I'm getting close, I switch it from our 100 thou down to our thou increment, and I'm going to bring my Z axis down, and we want to 0 in our X, Y, and Z. So on the bottom here, we have, bottom of our hay mirrors, we have this little ball tip. As I push this, you don't want to be pushing it, but as I push this, it'll move the needles back and forth. This little purple part is designed to break so that if you smash your hay mirror into that part, it doesn't wreck the very expensive hay mirror. It just breaks the a little less expensive tip. So what we're going to do is I'm turning to the left hand side, bringing my machine down, and the ball end of my hay mirror is behind the part. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to switch from my Z to my Y axis, and I'm going to bring in my part, and we know that this is zeroed when our red needle is on the bottom and our black needle is straight up to 0. Now, when I'm working in my thousandths resolution, I can't really get right on 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it down to 10 thou. And when I come in here, I'm able to step it in and hit 0 right there. So once my hay mirror reads 0, I'm going to, in the Y axis, press 0Y right there, and it'll 0 it out. So the next step that I need to do is I need to 0 in my X axis. And now with this, I don't want to be dragging my hay mirror on the back part of that. So I'm going to switch over to X axis, or sorry, I'm going to keep it on Y, but I'm going to back it out first. So I'm going to turn to the right to back it out. Remember, going to the right, like what we discussed in class, going to the right is positive. So Y is positive going that way, and that's why turning to the right goes that way. And then I'm going to change my axis from Y to X, and I'll change it to my thousandths resolution. So it's a little bit quicker, but we don't need to be flying around that part. So I'm going negative in X, meaning that I'm turning the dial to the left. And then I'm going to change to the Y axis, and I'm going to be going negative in Y, so I'm going to be turning that dial to the left. And I change it back to X, and I want to move to the right in X, so I'm going to be turning my dial to the right. And again, what I want to do is I want to 0 it out. Can't get quite there with my thousandths revolution, so I'm going to turn it to 10 thou. And I come in and make sure that I'm right at 0 on my hay mirror. Come over here, now that we are machining stuff, or we're tramming this in our, not tramming, zeroing or jogging in my X axis, I want to 0 my X. So then we will back this up a little bit. Backing it away. I'm going to change my axis to Z, and I'm going to change my resolution to thousandths. So I bring it up, go in my X axis, and I'm going to go into the center of my part by moving my X and Y, go back to my Z axis, and I'm going to come down and 0 out the very top of my part, just like I did before. As I get close to 0, I change it to the 10 thou resolution so that I can 0 there. And we come back and we hit 0Z. And now your machine has been turned on and zeroed out. The last thing that we would need to do is we need to bring up our hay mirror, and we need to pull that tool out, right? So again, can't do this one-handed, but when you're gonna take the hay mirror out, it does have a little bit of weight to it. So what we want to do is we want to hold it underneath and fully support that, because we don't want this to surprise you and have it fall down and break off that tip. Right? So we want to hold that underneath, press that button on the side of the ATC to be able to release it from the spindle. So in review, what we did is we turned on our machine, we reset it, and then we zeroed everything out. Next up, we'll show you how to load up and run our program.